Hey friends, it's Celine. I know I have been kind of MIA again. I've just been kind of prioritizing some other things, and I've been filming a lot for my personal channel, so I think that has been good for this channel as well because I no longer feel awkward to be in front of the camera. I'm still kind of getting used to it. I'm not naturally like a photogenic or like a person who likes to be in front of the camera a lot. I'm pretty shy, but I am now at a point where I can talk comfortably in front of the camera. So that has been good. I am not gonna promise a posting schedule, like a set posting schedule, because it's honestly going to be a little bit sporadic for the remainder of the year, and I don't know for how long it's going to be. I have some life changes coming up, so we'll see how all of that goes with posting on YouTube in general. But I have been reading a lot more, so by the end of this month you will be getting a wrap-up video like I used to post. So yeah, but anyhow, this video is going to be a dedicated review to a book that I just finished last night, and I'm on a high after this one. Oh my gosh, it was so good. You already know what it is by the title of this book, by the title of this video. It is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins, of course. If you didn't know, I am such a Hunger Games fan. In high school I watched the movies, and I also watched Divergent, but I honestly was more of a Hunger Games gal. So once this book came out, I was so excited as soon as I heard of it. And honestly, I kind of procrastinated reading this because I was intimidated by the chunkiness of this book. But once I got started, especially like, I think around here, I just flew through this last part. Like I was reading 200 pages a day. It was crazy. But so good. So I don't think this is going to be this is not going to be a spoiler-free review. I will give a quick blurb on what I thought of the book and just a couple little things that are spoiler-free. And then I'll let you know once I go into kind of my not like filled with spoilers review and kind of some theories that I have on some of the plot points and characters in this story. So with that, let me go ahead and kind of gather my thoughts for the spoiler-free review. So first, in case you have never heard of what this story is about, this is basically a prequel to the Hunger Games story or series, and our main character is Coriolanus Snow, who later on in his life becomes President Snow as we know him in the Hunger Games trilogy. And as soon as I found out that this book was going to be based on President Snow's life, his early life, and his kind of rise to power, I was like, I don't even need to know anything else, because I always wanted to hear some backstory on President Snow. We never really got that in the Hunger Games series, I feel. So this book is chock full of that. So we hear bits on his childhood, and we follow along with him when he is 18 years old. So that's kind of when everything starts unfolding and things start kind of stirring up in his life. So we kind of jump in, and he is 18 years old, and he is attending the academy in the capital, obviously, and this is a post-war capital. He and his classmates get a kind of an assignment to become mentors in the 10th annual Hunger Games, and this is kind of a new concept. They never really incorporated the students in the Hunger Games, so this was kind of like a very experimental year in the Hunger Games. So him and some other classmates of his were all chosen to be mentors for the Hunger Games, and as luck would have it, Coriolanus Snow was assigned to the District 12 girl. And for Coriolanus, he sees being assigned to the District 12 girl as a disgrace and a complete downer on his life, because he is really trying to make a name for himself and just uphold his kind of position in society. At this point in the story, people see the Snow family as a very wealthy and prestigious family, you know, a family of very high social status. But in reality, they're very poor and they're just scraping to get by. His father was killed in the war and his mother died shortly afterwards. And so, yeah, the Snow family has just experienced some pretty severe loss. But people still think that there is, you know, with the Snow name comes the idea of money and wealth, but not so. They're struggling very much, and Coriolanus is just trying with all his might to get by and uphold the family name. So again, being assigned to the District 12 girl, he sees as this is going to be a complete disaster for his life and for the Snow family. He was really hoping to get one of the, you know, the career districts. So like District 2 tends to have very successful tributes. So of course we learn more about that in the Hunger Games trilogy. But he gets assigned the District 12 girl and it just unravels from there. So now to wrap up my thoughts in a spoiler-free way. I loved this book. It was honestly everything I had hoped for and possibly more. I mean, throughout this book, my jaw was just dropped with the amount of like richness and all the details in this story. And I feel like Suzanne Collins does a really good job with like the imagery, how she writes her books. I feel like she really gets you in the mind space to really imagine the setting of the story and everything. So yeah, I mean, I usually when I am highly anticipating a book, I will come on the other side feeling disappointed always, because I was so hyped for it, but this book did not let me down. It gives a great bit of backstory on everything, and the amount of connections that you start to piece together in your mind from the Hunger Games series is insane. There were some times when I just like had to close the book and then just like digest what I just read and make the connections to what I watched or read from the Hunger Games series. It was so good. So if you liked the Hunger Games series, you definitely need to read this. And I don't know, I would recommend you read it before watching the movie. The movie is going to come out in about a month. So you still have some time to read this before the movie comes out, at least at the time of me filming this. So, I mean, yeah, such a great book. I'm not going to say any more because I think if I start saying any more, I will start to bring in some spoilers. So, spoiler alert now. I'm going to move into my theories and kind of spoiler-free thoughts on this book. Okay, now I feel like I can speak freely, so let me get comfy here. Oh my gosh, I am just like fangirling so hard right now, just thinking of all the connections that were made in this book. Like the main one where I just like screamed, like a lot of times in this book, I was just screaming internally and sometimes externally. And this moment that I'm about to tell you about was one of them. And it's the scene where Coriolanus and Lucy are just being reunited since being in the capital. So at that point in the story, he has been sent to District 12 to be a peacekeeper. and they're just reuniting in District 12 now. So Lucy is in the meadow and she's strumming on her guitar and she's singing The Hanging Tree. She's like in the process of writing it, I think. And that moment, seeing the blurb come up, the are you, I was like, I screamed. I was like, oh, there's no way she wrote that song. And so, oh my goodness. I'm sorry, I'm too much right now. I probably should have waited a couple days to film this video because I'm still like, I'm just bursting right now. Yeah, that moment was just so, because you hear this song coming from the person that Coriolanus Snow falls in love with. At this point of the story, he associates this song with her, this girl that he fell in love with and is like the love of his life, basically. And then he hears this song yet again later in his life that is basically a sign of his destruction that is to come. And I just wonder what's going on in his mind at the point in Mockingjay when he hears The Hanging Tree yet again in very different circumstances. So the same thing kind of happens with the Mockingjay. They are a very prevalent thing in District 12 where Coriolanus is kind of stationed to be a peacekeeper, and him and his other kind of like platoon mates are in the forest at one point gathering them up, as well as the, or was it the Jabberjays that they were getting? The Mockingjay is a combination of the Jabberjay and a mockingbird, so I think that mix is what kind of bothered Coriolanus. Seeing the part capital, part district mix, I think, started to confuse him, because even though he sees the big downfalls in the capital, he is still very much capital himself. And I think he had this desire once he met Lucy Gray to leave the capital and just be with her and to, you know, make a life for himself in District 12. We start to see that in, I forget which chapter, but he has this kind of shift in mindset. And I think the Mockingjays are kind of what bring him back to realizing that he is capital through and through, deep down. And so, you know, in this part of the story, when he's 18 with Lucy Gray, we see him with the Mockingjays at this point in the story and what the Mockingjay kind of symbolizes to him at this point in the story. And then I would just sit there and think how, like, what was going through his mind when the Mockingjay became obviously a very big and prevalent symbol in the lifetime of Katniss and her kind of career in the Hunger Games. It became basically like the rebel symbol is the Mockingjay. So I just, yeah, the Hanging Tree song and the Mockingjay are just, how they were brought into this story were just amazing. Like, masterly done. That doesn't make sense, but you get what I mean. The last couple things I'll kind of point out. We have the song Deep in the Meadow, Under the Willow, a Bed of Grass, a Soft Green Pillow. If that song sounds familiar, we see it in the Hunger Games where Katniss sings that to Primrose, and she also sings it to Rue, and that song comes back in this book. And I loved that moment where where Lucy Gray sings that song to Maud Ivory to kind of like calm her down. And then we have, who was it? I forget his name. But he came running in showing Lucy Gray the Katniss root, and Lucy Gray was like, oh yeah, it's not ready to eat. And Coriolanus was like, oh, like, what's that? And, you know, it just, all the connections, like, I think of what's going through President Snow's mind later in his life when he meets Katniss. You know, he has the connection of Katniss. He first learned of what Katniss was when he was in the woods by the lake with Lucy Gray and the rest of the Covey. That's when he first learned of like what Katniss was, the first time he heard of it. And then later in his life, he comes across this girl named Katniss. And then we have the Mockingjays that he is kind of dealing with in his life in District 12. And then we have a girl from District 12 wearing a Mockingjay pin. And then the Hanging Tree song he associates with, again, the love of his life, this girl, Lucy Gray, who he loves. And then later in his life, the song comes back as a symbolism of his destruction that is to come with the rebel movement, right? Yeah. I'm just gonna keep going because I will have another fangirl explosion, and you already saw one of them, so I don't need to show you another. Oh my gosh, this book was so good. To sum it up, basically, I love this book. The only thing that I wish we could have get, some elaboration on is Tigress and the contrast of her character and what she thinks of Coriolanus from this book to Mockingjay. In this one, she is very close to Coriolanus, and she loves him so much, their family, and she would do anything to support him. And then in the Mockingjay, she is helping Katniss, and Katniss is going to kill President Snow. So I just want to know what happened that made her betray Coriolanus in the future. So I would love to know more on that, but I don't know if we'll ever get that story. Also, the loose end, we don't know if Lucy Gray died or survived. Obviously, we have Coriolanus, he just shot a whole bunch in the woods, so we don't know if she ever survived that or not. I saw this one theory video that said that Lucy Gray lived and ultimately became President Coin, and that's a really interesting theory. I will link the video if you want to go and watch that. It makes sense, is all I'm going to say. It would work in the story, but, I love and hate when authors leave these, loose ends for you to just endlessly think about. At least I endlessly think about them. We don't know if Lucy Gray lived or not, and part of me is like, it works so well because of the Ballad of Lucy Gray, that song. We don't know if the little girl in the song lived or if she became a ghost or whatever. And it's the same thing with Lucy Gray Baird. We don't know if she lived or not. And I think that was so well done, but at the same time, I want to know. Yeah, I love this book so much. If you've read it also, let me know, write me in the comments, but just put spoiler alert, and then put some spaces between, so that if people haven't read it, then they will not, read your comment. So yeah, I just had to make this video because I just had to fangirl to somebody. I was just kind of telling my mom little bits and pieces because she also likes the Hunger Games. But I was just I can't tell you more because you haven't read the book. And yeah, so I just needed somewhere to just talk about these things. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, give this video a thumbs up, and I will be back hopefully with some more videos for you guys soon. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.